All right, y'all. By 1991, it was official. The Cold War was over. The Soviet Union collapsed, the Berlin Wall had fallen, and the United States, it was the last superpower standing. For nearly half a century, American policy had been focused on containing communism and avoiding direct conflict with the USSR. But now, the chessboard was flipped. With no global rival, the US stepped into a new role, one of global dominance. Some called it hegemony, others called it unilateralism. But either way, America had the power to act, and often did, without waiting for allies or international approval. And that mindset, it shaped nearly every major decision in the early 21st century. In the 1990s, the U.S. led international coalitions like in the Persian Gulf War, expanded free trade through NAFTA, and supported military and humanitarian efforts in places like Bosnia and Somalia. Without the balance of a Cold War enemy, the U.S. began setting the global agenda economically, militarily, and politically. But this also created new expectations. If the US was the only superpower, it would be expected to handle everything, from conflict resolution to global disasters. The end of the Cold War didn't mean peace, it meant a new kind of pressure. Then came the year 2000. The presidential race between George W. Bush and Al Gore was too close to call. All eyes turned to Florida, where the voting problems led to confusion, recounts, and national controversy. Ballots were disrupted, machines failed, and for weeks, Americans waited to find out who their next president would be. In the end, the Supreme Court stepped in. In a 5-4 decision, Bush v. Gore effectively ended the recount and handed the presidency to George W. Bush. The whole ordeal shook public trust in the election process and raised questions about voting access and the role of the courts, issues that still echo today. But just 9 months into Bush's presidency, the world changed again. On September 11th, 2001, terrorists hijacked planes and crashed them into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania. The attacks were carried out by Al Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. The response was swift and sweeping. The U.S. launched the war on terror, starting with Afghanistan, where the Taliban had sheltered al Qaeda leaders. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, citing fears of weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorism, fears that were later discredited. These decisions reflected Cold War style thinking. The idea that the U.S. must act first, lead alone if needed, and reshape foreign governments to maintain global security. But this time, the enemy wasn't another superpower, it was terrorism, scattered and unpredictable. In 2008, Americans made history. Barack Obama was elected the first African American president. His campaign focused on unity, progress, and restoring trust after years of war and economic instability. It was a turning point, not just symbolically, but generationally. Obama took the office during the Great Recession, one of the worst economic crises since the Great Depression. Banks were collapsing, unemployment was rising, and Americans were losing their homes. The government responded with a major stimulus package aimed at saving jobs, rebuilding infrastructure, and restarting the economy. Meanwhile, Obama shifted the tone of foreign policy, favoring diplomacy and multilateral action. But many of the challenges he faced in Afghanistan, Iraq, and beyond were direct legacies of Cold War policies in the post 9/11 world. Throughout the early 2000s, immigration became one of the most heated political issues in the country. The Cold War had once shaped U.S. policy to welcome refugees from communist nations, but now new waves of migrants were arriving from Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East, and the political response was changing. Congress debated the DREAM Act, which would provide legal status for undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. When it failed, Obama issued DACA, protecting dreamers from deportation. The policy was challenged, defended, and debated as the U.S. struggled to balance national security with its identity as a nation of immigrants. Later debates over border walls, family separation, and asylum policies deepened divisions, revealing just how complex and personal immigration had become in the post Cold War, post 9/11 world. As the 21st century rolled on, technology transformed nearly every aspect of American life. The Cold War had fueled early inventions like computers and satellites, But by the 2000s, those tools had gone mainstream. Smartphones, social media, streaming platforms, and artificial intelligence weren't just science fiction anymore, they were everyday life. At the same time, globalization, boosted by Cold War trade alliances and post war economic policies, reshaped the workforce. Manufacturing jobs moved overseas, service jobs surged, and the rise of gig economy changed how Americans earned a living. Technology brought incredible benefits, but also new vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity threats, job automation, online misinformation, and growing concerns about privacy, labor rights, and corporate power. But tech didn't just change the economy, it transformed democracy. Social media gave new power to grassroots movements. Hashtags became headlines, videos became viral calls to action. In recent years, we've seen the rise of Black Lives Matter, Me Too, March for Our Lives, and more. These movements reflected a new kind of civic participation, one shaped by Cold War era fights for civil rights, but carried out in the digital age. At the same time, distrust in government, elections, and the media has grown. The old Cold War promise that American democracy would always shine brighter than authoritarianism is being tested in real time. So, what's the big picture? The US entered the 21st century as the world's only superpower, but that power came with responsibility, conflict, and consequence. Nearly every major decision, from foreign wars to immigration to the economy, can be traced back to the Cold War era. And today, we're dealing with those legacies. The systems we built to fight the Cold War now shape how we respond to terrorism, technology, and global competition. The Cold War may be over, but its influence still very much alive. And that, scholars, is the tea. The modern era is complicated, fast paced, and still unfolding, but when you know where it came from, you can start to understand where it might be going. So study smart, stay curious, and keep making history.